People who have been born into families who are part of a cult. What's your story? I know I'm late, and I don't know how much you want to know, but my grandparent was the leader of a Smallish cult. It was very religious based and the main focus was pedophilia and slavery. My name growing up was Slave 2, and my role was to do all the chores on the farm, all the housework and to please my master. I got out. My body has some pretty horrible scars, and I'm okay to talk about my past, though I've lost a lot of friends due to oversharing. I'm happy to answer most questions. On the serious, I'll share my story, even though it wasn't me or my family directly, but looks like the serious responses are pretty thin in this thread so far. My closest friend in college, we'll call him C, moved to Cali after he graduated. We kinda lost touch after a year or so. A bit later on, I got a call from his mother out of the blue one day. She must have had to dig just to get my cell number, but she starts off and asks me if I've talked to C lately. I tell her no, it's almost been a year since I last chatted w/him. She then goes on to tell me to please reach out to her if I'm able to get in touch w/him in any way. He apparently got involved with some cult, sold all of his belongings, and disappeared without any contact with his previous life. They have a private detective in Cali right now searching for him. I don't hear from either of them again for a year after that. Time goes by, and one day I get a call from C one day. He moved to a new city coincidentally a few hours from the new city I had moved to. He's weird on the phone though. Super outgoing energetic dude, sounds like a zombie the first time I talk to him. I invite him to my city to spend a weekend to catch up. He actually drives down and stays for a 3-day weekend, and I don't recognize this dude at all. He seemed like equal parts zombie, depressed, anxious, relieved, all at the same time. It was an awkward weekend. The cult thing didn't get broached once. I was never 100% sold on the C joined the cult story, but without a single person hearing from him, it wasn't the worst possible scenario of all things, I guess. Having him sit in front of me that weekend, it firmed that theory up. So I didn't bring it up that weekend. Never have actually. Just tried to make him feel at home and throw some nostalgia his way, you know. It's been about a decade now. He's married and a dad now. He wrote a novel, kinda sci-fi fiction. It's about a dude who gets caught up in a cult. Then he transcends reality and time, and it kinda goes from there. We had to go every Sunday into a dedicated place where adults pretended to have a sip of the blood of a very old corpse. That was truly horrifying. The place was covered with depictions of a tortured man on a cross. Really glad I escaped this death cult. It's all about how you frame it. As a former Christian, I'll say there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding going around. Were you to spend years in my shoes at the churches I attended, you'd probably see it a lot differently. Not trying to convert anyone, I'm agnostic myself now. I'm Catholic too, not practicing anymore, and was always weirded out by it. Feels more of a cult to looking back. My mom is highly religious, and she won't listen to reason on a scientific reference. Lol, it's crazy to view religion from an outside perspective, especially when it was once one's own. I was born and raised Catholic my entire life, and when I went to uni and self-discovered, I realized that the whole God thing as I'd learned it didn't really make sense to me. I'm very comfortably agnostic now, simply because I don't really care enough to be full-on atheist. Literally none of us can know about the existence of a higher power ever, so for myself atheism is just as ridiculous as believing. So I go to church when I'm at home to make my mom happy. She's eventually accepted and then even embraced the whole gay thing a year after I came out, so what's the harm? But after years of not attending church and not having a dogmatic atom in my being, and then going to church with her, the experience was really otherworldly. Anytime there was a collective prayer I kept thinking about the Borg from Star Trek, and it felt so incredibly culty. So I just did my part and harmonized with my mom during the hymns. We both bonded over my passion for choral singing, and she loves to sing with me. Mine was pretty relaxed as well. At around 13 I was able to stop practicing with no resistance. I've noticed recently, 40 now, in the age of enlightenment, that is their numbers. In practicing members drop each year, they literally have changed their narrative multiple times over the years to try and keep people believing the lies they teach. It's crazy to think how someone can create such bullshit stories all in an effort to gain control, power, and money. It's rather unsettling to think this type stuff has been used for as long as it has. Can't help but wonder where man might be without these delusions stunting our mental development. The cult I was born into in particular has a rich history of fuckery. I was born into a pretty big cult, been out for 4 years, but the damage never really goes away. It leaves you without a family, without any ability to make or maintain friendships, and with an almost paralyzing distrust of anyone and anything religious. I would argue that the last one isn't entirely undeserved, but it's gotten in the way of a few conversations before. Got years of counseling and therapy ahead of me to unpick the mess they made of me. All the third full moons after the solstice, we used to worship Bulbashur in the sacred temple of Graboko further Largs. When I was a child I didn't mind going there, but from the teenage, I got some rebellious spirit. I told my parents that the Great Grand Priest of the Light Dynasty was boring, and that I didn't want to go to the temple again. My parents understood me and gave me the freedom of going to the temple or being locked and raped by demons in the eternity of the flames of Ragnarok. So I started to smoke crack, left the village, and married a shemale in Vegas. My family was part of the Christian religion cult. It was awful to be forced to worship, and once I reached the age of reasoning I bailed and never looked back. Never go back to the carpet store. All this is really discouraging me starting my own dog-human bond-based cult. All I really want to do is start a godless religion about the love of dogs to ensure they last as long as humans. My parents were Scientologists, with my dad being a pretty high-ranking guy. They left when I was still young, but they used to harass our family a lot when I was growing up. Made me very distrustful of organized religion in general. Hey guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to watch my other videos and subscribe.